The mule is a sterile hybrid animal, born from the cross between a donkey and a mare or a horse and a donkey. The story tells that it was in the north of Turkey where man raised mules for the first time. Already in the Old Testament the mule appears replacing the donkey as a royal beast. It was ridden by King David and King Solomon. Since then it has been widely used by humanity to help in the heaviest and most difficult tasks thanks to its resistance. So it was used by the Spanish who brought it to America, where it was of invaluable help for the steep topographies of the Andes. Even today they are necessary for multiple tasks. As a gesture of gratitude and recognition to this animal, the municipality of Titiribí, located in the department of Antioquia, Colombia, has proclaimed itself the world capital of the saddle mule. Well, when we realized, in the culture of humanity, the donkeys had crossed with the mares and the donkeys with the horses, the hybrid would already have occurred. It has been discovered that in its rusticity, resistance and intelligence, which is something so important that little is recognized, it contributed to the human being in the development of all cultures. As a tool something very great, hard work, dirty work, let's put it like this. Instead, the horse was the one used for the photo and the story, but behind the horse was the mule, carrying the most difficult on its back, carrying the heaviest and making it more impossible. My name is Victor Velez. I am a farmer from Titiribí who dedicated myself to studying the Colombian Creole horse, in its morphology, development and all the racking of our horse, why this culture of our ancestors is created. Upon reaching the mule and graduating as a Fedekina judge and a Confapeso judge, to be able to humbly contribute my knowledge and what my family has bequeathed to me, because this is called an oral transmission, here there is nothing written. Here from one generation to another all knowledge passes, all the teachings of our ancestors and our ancestors pass. Donkeys are brought to America. They're on the Atlantic coast and Colombia has a backbone that is its Magdalena and Cauca rivers. A very important slope of the Magdalena River, the donkey spreads there, through the Andes mountain range, where from the Colombian Massif to the Atlantic coast these riverside areas are populated, so that the donkey develops as such but not the mule yet. When the Andes mountain range is already found, the need to create a horse to move families is seen and then the need for a horse to move the household items, that had to be with a mule that was more resistant, intelligent and knew how to drive. Plus the hills, this is where all this bridle path develops, all these penetration routes, where we currently still have regions where motor vehicles reach us. The mule is a tool for all those topographical difficulties. At the end of the last century, in the expansion of the Panama Canal, they had to take 250 mules from Uraba in Antioquia with the muleteers to help expand the canal. In Antioquia, above all, in this part of the Suarez River, in the Colombian Massif, we still have many regions with the need to penetrate them on the back of a mule, because the mule is the fundamental axis for the development of our regions. Now the 21st century is coming, the pandemic catches us, All this is giving us some indicators where the mule is truly the transport vehicle of the future, because it has everything to provide what we human beings need: rusticity, resistance, strength, intelligence. All this will complement us and make us centaurs on the back of a mule. The department of Antioquia is crossed by the central and western Cordillera, both presenting very steep topographies that required the mule for their colonization. Titiribí is located on sloping terrain, and many of its paths can still be reached today only by mule. The main thing is that Titiribí, due to its topography and difficult access so many years ago, had no way to enter it, neither by car nor by motorcycle, nothing. We had to resort to the paths of our ancestors. There is a foundation of what the mines are, which was what brought us here to this sector. Here were the first gold mines in the country, and there is a culture along the royal roads and through everything that brought us mules to Titiribí, as well to remove the byproducts that were produced within the municipality, such as panela for example, this to be able to take it back to Medellin already processed. There is that difficulty of the Andes Mountains that makes us great thanks to the mule. Here in the municipality of Titiribí we have a history of more than 100 years. One of the great feats of the paisas is bringing a cable to take the carts with the material out of the center of the mine. This is unloaded at the Camilo C station. There each mule carried 2 laps on each side, some had to carry both points and the mule behind had to carry the fold of the cable. It took 200 mules and 80 muleteers on mule tracks to transport this cable because it could not be divided, it had to be whole and it was very heavy. There was no other vehicle to transport what the mule did. That's called a turga, when one goes behind the other or in a military line. All that difficulty that the hill generates is solved by the mule. That is where the mule makes the human being that it breeds, cultivates, tames, and uses as a tool. A human being that meets all his goals, overcomes all his difficulties and ultimately makes him a great person. I have asked myself many times, what would Simón Bolívar be without a horse? What would the United States be without mule carriages? What would mining on the back in Colombia be without the mule? Or what would be of agriculture? So the mule is an important tool. The transformation occurs when the saddle horse is created or forged, which your grandparents and mine forged out of a simply involuntary need, and they were selecting those horses there, the softest, the most comfortable and the most resistant. They begin to make that cross with the donkey in some way I knew until they achieved what we have today. Those mules with good gaits and movements. At this moment the mule is the most important appendage that our Colombian Criollo horse has, because it meets all the needs. And if we go back, we can find what is going to happen ahead. The mule makes the horse of the future and the human being, precisely because of that issue of intelligence, rusticity, that effort that the human being has to make to be able to communicate with it, because I could understand it, but the difficult thing is to make it understood by it. That is where the heart of the matter is, that is where the discipline or the advancement of the human being is. How do I make that mule understand me? Because it would be even more intelligent if, even if I don't use her same language, I make myself understood by her. How do I have to achieve it? With gestures, caresses, timely, moderate, correct orders and above all with respect. Because in their natural prey instinct and mine as a predator we would have a conflict. We only break this by being intelligent. It cannot be broken without intelligence. That is why many people say that mules are brave and brutish. He who says that means that he is less intelligent than a mule, that the mule in his intelligence has been more dominant than him, the prey has won over the predator. What happens is that we have to show her as a support tool, not just another animal on the farm. So for us an effective bond is created because it is what allows us to bring food to our house since the time of our ancestors. Today there are many mule breeders in Titiribí. They are the ones who promote this recognition. One of them, the most traditional and representative, is the kennel La Suiza Mejia. Mr. Jorge Mario Mejia Flores, a descendant of this tradition, tells us. The work of raising mules is a passion that we have had for many years. Here in Titiribí, from the descendants of my grandfather Cuco Mejia and my father Don Pepe Mejia. We have had very representative coffee and cattle farms, and that is where the passion for creating mules comes from. There I got a donkey that we called Carolo, son of Coseco, which I believe gave a very important transaction in the mules, where we have seen some fruits and we have had some mules in the farm, La Suiza Mejia, national champions. For example, Carino, La Suiza Mejia, La Toscana, Cerizado, now we have Caruso, from La Suiza Mejia. We also had Taboo, and some very representative mules that have won the tracks nationally in the country.
Así lo podemos hacer así para que hagamos la feria de mulas. Le contaba a Víctor que me dice que buscáramos un lugar más idóneo. Hagamos el primero aquí en el parque.
One with the mules does have a different management in the least ones, because they are mules that when we start them at 24 months, we put them 2 or 3 months from the paddocks to the cages. When they are 24 months old they begin to be rented. The mule is very intelligent, very voluntary for the rented one. I can suddenly say that it is even easier to rent a mule than a horse. I think that this is already like a town tradition in which we have seen that the good mules have almost come out all from Titiribí. Here there have been very important donkeys and a very different myth has been created in the breeding of mules. Previously, what the old people did was discard the Anona mares and leave them to the donkeys. Not now. I took Carolo, with some good show mares and began to breed mules that gave us some results and reached very high values. Of 50, 100, 120,000, 150 million and more. The gait of mules today is very fine and people have been able to appreciate how they have advanced in their steps and movements. That is why they have moved so much in the different farms that had never ridden on a mule in their lives. Now and they have proven a ride that is good for saddle, crawling or fine, and there is a very impressive fame with the mules, and that is why they have taken such important prices. The mules practically have the same steps as the horses. There are galloping reed mules, galloping trocadoras, fine and crawling. The latter have a gait between walking and fine, an intermediate gait that is relaxed. What the old people taught us was a rested mule that walks fast. where they toured a farm, then they arrived at the town already tired from a 6 or 7 hour bustle. They arrived, crawling, and rested, so these mules have a very good price and welcome. In this stubborn way, like mules, the breeders and promoters of Titiribí have come forward to recognize this animal that has contributed so much to the development of America and the world since the beginning of humanity. Around the mules, all the families came out together and we met, as I was telling you now, the story of the typical families of Titiribí. When the father, the wife, the children, the grandchildren come out around the mules. Taking into account the meekness and nobility of these animals that allow the smallest of the houses to learn and carry that tradition in their veins, instilled from their ancestors, grandparents and great-grandparents. As a breeder I am very new, I am just beginning, muleteer at heart for many years. Through genetic improvement, I am trying to create a mule with specific characteristics that will serve us for work on the farm, fun, cargo, and the different events that take place at the farm level. But also, if I go to an enjoyment with the family, to a road, to a ravine, to a river, to an outdoor activity, I can take advantage of it. I want us to have tame, noble, large, thick, beautiful mules that can take us on a horseback ride without any mishap, so that no matter how difficult the path, weather, climate or topography may be, we can make the journey as a family. Nowadays we are trying to improve the conditions of the mule. Long ago we used to give the bad mare to the donkey. Nowadays, with everything that we are living around, with the fever that people have to return to their ancestors, to travel the paths that they traveled, enjoying the uncontaminated landscapes and everything that we have around us, taking advantage of what the family has. So we return to tradition and culture, but we are going to involve the new era of the mules. We have new kennels now, with an impressive desire to return to this with a genetic improvement, putting the good mares, not the bad ones, those of a good breed, those with the best parents, putting them to the best donkeys that have been growing in a selection. So we're doing something spectacular right now. It is already the new era of saddle mules, which is the slogan of one of the best hatcheries also here in the municipality. When we started with this topic of horseback riding with only mules, I was a special guest of some great friends from Armenia to the Parque de los Arrieros, where people from Antioquia are invited. They have already done 6 or 7 rides. In the first one in which I was there we got 200 horses, now in the last one that was theirs there were 407. However, we beat them in the first year that we did in Titiribí. But it is because of the topography, the reception, and what is the area of Antioquia as such that is more mulera. But Medellin has more mountains, or I don't know what it is, but there is more fever for this issue. In this ride that we did in 2019, we left 607 saddled specimens, only mules. In the mule, breeding is very complex because it is always a finished product, it is always a gelding, a hybrid that we are getting. A good mule cannot breed good mules for us. so we always arrive at a finished product, and in this transfer we have to be very wise and accurate, from one generation to another. This is not done in 15 days, nor in 15 years, but from one generation to the next we are forging, first suitable mares, suitable horses, suitable donkeys and donkeys to obtain that finished product of the best quality, both in the replacement of mares as in replacement of donkeys. There comes a breeding process, how he raised it so that it is of good quality, of a good size, that it is comfortable. It is a term that we have to begin to measure in all aspects. Its size, meekness, intelligence, nobility, movements, spells and all aspects that can disrupt to reach the comfort and well-being of the human being. So, when our ancestors, here in the case of Titiribí, the Voles, the Posadas, the Ochoa, the Restrepo, the Mejia, have all helped us in the process of forming our saddle mule. It is not easy. What happens is that, as I told you, there is no written book, there is simply an oral transmission, where the latter tells the son and the son will tell the grandson, each one will accumulate that knowledge to obtain good results. The time for training arrives, where we need an obedient, intelligent mule that easily captures the little communication it may have with the human being. That is the most difficult part, but this is happening little by little because intelligence is inherited. An intelligent donkey will give intelligent mules, an intelligent horse will give mares, children and intelligent mules. Horses also produce mules when they are crossed with donkeys, and donkeys produce mules when they are crossed with mares, but we have to continue debugging. Our ancestors did it involuntarily, but they succeeded, and we now have the result. We have a great saddle mule that we can offer the world with great peace of mind and with a term that has many adjectives. Comfortable, for these difficult hills, for these hot climates, for these complex bridle paths that we had ancestrally and that for now we must preserve.